Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode in our Rise of the Moors series. And in this episode, we'll be doing the promised review of our first season in charge of Solihull Moors and a bit of a post-mortem of what has happened in the 2015 to 2016 campaign in the Vanarama National League North. Now, overall, it's been a fantastic performance from the Moors throughout the campaign. We equalled the record points haul for a single season, 33 wins, 8 draws and just the 1 loss. Now, the club as a whole, as you can see there, we've made a profit of 162k this season. We would have been in trouble if it wasn't for the FA Cup run. And really, that favourable draw was pivotal in our success this year. I was only just over the previously set budget, and really the club as a whole was just leaking money. So if it wasn't for that success in the cup and that much needed TV income, I think financially we would have been in trouble. So I think it's best to start with a view of the league table. Like we've mentioned, such a fantastic form for the Moors this year. And really, it was just the 1 loss against Alfreton, and that was the game immediately before our FA Cup third round tie at home to Spurs. So we were so close to going undefeated throughout the whole campaign. And actually, we nearly broke the record for the points haul for a single campaign. If we hadn't drawn that last game to AFC Telford, I think overall we had such a solid team and we were such a hard team to beat, and that was pivotal in our success really. I cannot believe they didn't make me manager of the season. 75% win ratio and 107 points in the league. Quick look at the movers and the risers throughout the divisions then. Chelsea winners of the Premier League, with Newcastle, Norwich and Sunderland relegated from there. Tottenham's Luan as the signing the season. I'm sure you remember he bagged a brace against us in the FA Cup third round. Derby, Sheffield Wednesday and Hull promoted into the Premier League. Forest, Rotherham and Preston relegated, so it's a poor performance from Forest overall. Not as bad a performance as Middlesbrough though, who actually finished 19th in that league. So Bradford City, Wigan and Peterborough, they'll be promoted into the Championship for the next season. Fleetwood, Port Vale, Scunthorpe and Crewe going the other way. They'll be replaced by Portsmouth as winners, Cambridge, Notts County and Luton, with Crawley and Bristol Rovers dropping down into the Vanarama National League, the league that we're moving into, with Cheltenham and Gateshead going the other way. So from our tier of football, Alfreton beat Boston in the playoff final, so they'll be joining us in the Vanarama National League. We'll also be joined by Whitehawk and Margate from the Vanarama National League South, and will be replacing the relegated Torquay, Barrow, Welling and Guiseley. So starting the season for the Vanarama National League North, Jermaine Afori for Alfreton and Eric Odiambo as the runner-up there. Highest average rating player, Jack Byrne, and like we've mentioned, only 28 appearances for him. And one more record of note, the fastest goal scored by Jake Beasley in our home game versus Gloucester, and that was the goal after 14 seconds. Before I touch on player statistics, I think it's worth having a quick look at a few of the statistics for the teams in this league this year. This will just show why our tactic was so successful this season. As you can see, we had the best average possession, 57.7% there, and there were a lot of fixtures as well that we were so much higher than that. We were up into the 60s and for large periods of matches, 70% possession. Not only our average possession was the best, we made the most passes of any team, nearly 4,000 more passes, and our pass completion percentage was also the highest at 75%. So the one thing that did undermine us really was our discipline. 54 yellow cards over a campaign and 2 red cards as well. Our tackle percentage was pretty decent, but by no means the greatest in the league, and the fouls made are pretty high as well. Now, in my opinion, that's a reflection of a couple of things. That's a reflection of the hard tackles that we employed against some of the key men throughout the season, but also our defensive unit as a whole being ever so slightly fragile. It's also a reflection of a couple of individuals playing in our midfield having quite poor discipline, and we'll touch on that discipline in a moment or two when we have a look at our players. But having a look at our attacking statistics, most goals in the season, 75 goals in total, 10 from the corner. We matched the Chester record points haul of 107 points in the National League. In that campaign, I think Chester scored over 100 goals. And that statistic, while it is fantastic and we've scored a lot of goals, my opinion throughout the campaign has been we probably played ever so slightly conservative. We only played one at the top with two wingers. Our strikers at times weren't prolific enough, and we went through patches with a few of those players where they just weren't finding the back of the net as consistently as they should do. But 75 goals in a campaign, still the highest number of goals for a team in the division this year. Cross completion rate, interesting statistic here, because for a large number of those goals we've scored, they came from the channels. They came from our wide men, especially Ben Glasgow playing on the overlap, or Odiambo or Jake Sheridan on the left, delivering decent balls into the box. 15% cross completion ratio for the Moors is up there with the rest of the leaders in that statistic in the division. And these are the two statistics we were touching on before. Obviously, we've been playing quite a possession-based, patient, at times too patient build-up. We're all about the passing, we're all about the possession. Touching on it again, as you can see there, nearly 3,000 more than the next best team in the division, and over some of the other teams in our league, far more passes completed. Even better than that, our pass completion ratio, 75%, is fantastic, really, especially at this sort of level with some of the players that we have in our squad. So shots on target, we're up there with some of the other teams. So the top four teams there for shots on target are all been successful throughout the campaign. 189 goals for us and a 36% shots on target ratio, which isn't as good as some of the other teams there. And that just shows really, if we can up our on target ratio, if our strikers were a little bit more prolific or a little bit of a better quality, we would have scored a lot more goals this year. And then just looking briefly at some of the defensive statistics as well then, 23 goals conceded throughout the year, best defensive record, and 22 clean sheets as well. And I think our goalkeeper Simpson really played a vital part in that. I'll return to talking about Simpson in a couple of moments time. So there we go, our tackles won ratio, we're quite low down in the standings there, 72%. 917 tackles, so nearly 100 less than some of the other teams, and 375 fouls made. So just returning to it, I don't expect our number of total tackles for the Moors to be as high as some of the other teams, because of our average possession was itself higher. So our ability to control the ball and restrict the ball from the opposition will obviously reduce their number of tackles that our defensive unit are making. What is a worry though was the number of fouls that we've made in comparison to some of the other teams. And again, like I've mentioned before, that is a reflection of the quality within our defensive unit itself, I believe. So just having a look at the player statistics for the league alone then. Highest average rating for Jack Byrne and Ben Glasgow, both of whom I think are in the top 5 best performers for all the players across the league. Also a good contribution from Eric Odiambo, Adam Walker, Jack Haddon and Kim Quansah, who only played a limited number of games as well. So Jack Byrne and Ben Glasgow for me are our standout performers throughout the year. Now just touching on Jack Byrne alone for a moment. Jack Byrne only made 26 starts for us in the league and 2 appearances from the substitute bench. And this was because of a couple of injuries he picked up, but also his poor discipline. 9 yellow cards and 2 red cards means that he was banned and suspended for a number of games throughout the campaign. So Jack Byrne would have played more if it wasn't for his discipline. Because of that, his performance and contribution for the team could and realistically should have been far greater than they are now. So 3 goals and 4 assists for him, but 6 player of the match performances from him have been vital in our success. Other performances of note, Adam Walker started the campaign brilliantly for us, but actually his overall contribution and his form did fade away throughout the season. And now having a look at our attacking contribution for the league. Like we mentioned before, we were the top goal scorers in the league, but we didn't have that single contributor. And actually we had a lot of goals coming from a lot of players throughout the entire team, which is very pleasing indeed. So Jake Beasley leading the goal scoring tally with 12 league goals, but also a good contribution from our wingers, Odiambo, Sheridan, Fletcher also contributed a few, and our other two strikers, Jean-Michel Fontaine and Matt Godden. I think if we had that single striker who had carried exceptional form throughout the season, possibly contributed 20 plus goals for us in the league, I think we would have been a very difficult team to stop this campaign, more so than we were. The player who I was a bit disappointed with actually was Jean-Michel Fontaine. Possibly the scouts got it ever so slightly wrong. When he came in, he should have been one of the best players in the league. I think actually it was the injuries and his inconsistent form that actually affected his overall performances throughout the campaign. So he only made 22 appearances for us, 9 of which were off the bench. So he only contributed 6 goals for us and the 1 assist. And that is actually slightly disappointing, bearing in mind the anticipation that I had for him. Now at the start of the campaign, I said we were spoilt for choice for strikers. Because we were having to rotate, that has possibly led to us not having a standout contributor and possibly affecting the overall consistent form of those players as well. Now having a look at the assists, unsurprisingly, Ben Glasgow, Sheridan, Odiambo and Connor Franklin. Ben Glasgow for me has been our player of the season, absolutely standout performances from him, and his contribution of whipping the ball in and providing good crosses and good incisive passing from that overlap on the right wing has really led to our success as a team this year. So player of the match, Jack Byrne, but also Odiambo, Glasgow and Adam Walker from his form at the start of the season as well. And like we said, Jack Byrne, his stats could have been even better if it wasn't for that poor discipline. Pass completion rate, Jack Haddon at 85%. He has been absolutely fantastic for us in that defensive midfield role. And also he's up there in his tackles per game as well, only behind Keenan Quansah. But pleasing to see some of the other players up there with a good pass completion rate. Odiambo, Jack Byrne, to name a couple. Conversely, as you can see down the bottom, poorest pass completion rate, unsurprisingly, a few of our defenders who probably aren't as technically gifted. Shots on target ratio, 50% for some of our midfielders, and interestingly as well, 50% for Jake Beasley, so that is a decent return from him as a striker. So we've touched on discipline already. Jack Haddon, Connor Franklin, most number of yellows, but it's Jack Byrne with the poorest discipline of the lot with 9 yellows and 2 reds. The only player to receive a red card for us this season. Theo Street also up there with a few bookings as well. Number of mistakes made, Connor Franklin, Theo Street, and finally, final last bit of creative spark there, the key passes stat, nearly 100 for both Ben Glasgow and Jack Byrne. Like we've mentioned, if Jack Byrne had played more games for us this season, I think we would, as a team as a whole, we probably would have performed better. But Ben Glasgow, unsurprisingly, is a top assister this season, 98 key passes for him. So a quick look at the tactic then that we've employed throughout the season. Like I said in episode 1, I like playing with attacking width, and I also like playing a holding defensive midfielder at this sort of level of football. I think the defensive midfielder really detracts from some of our attacking ability because we don't have that extra man going through the attacking phases. Having said that, when we assessed the defenders in the squad at the very start of the season, we identified that our central defender was actually quite poor. At times, we've looked very fragile at the back. I don't think we would have performed as well as we did if it wasn't for us employing that defensive midfield role. Now, because we've played that position, we're essentially detracting from our attacking ability. I think though, we made a good balance here. I think we had enough about us going forward, and I think we were quite solid as a defensive unit and we were very hard to beat. If we had that striker and if we'd had that player to get us, say, 20, 25 goals, we would have been an immense team. So let's have a quick look at a couple of the goals of the season for me. So let's have a look at the squad then. So as you can see, Kieran Bywater, Jack Byrne, Luke Simpson, Gittings and Odiambo are our standout players in this squad at the moment. Quansah, Beasley and Haddon all on loan. Kieran Bywater is a recent arrival, so we've got him on contract until the end of the next season. Similarly, I've extended the contracts of Jack Byrne, Callum Gittings and Odiambo to the end of next season as well. Unfortunately, the player we're having difficulty with at the moment is Luke Simpson, our goalkeeper, who's been absolutely fantastic for us throughout the season, but he does not want to commit to another year with the Moors, at least at this moment. Other players we've managed to retain include Ben Glasgow at right back, who's still got a lot of growth as a player to make, and that is the same situation as Matthew Fletcher as well, who's been a decent player for us, and we've extended both of their contracts until the end of next year. And the other player we've managed to retain is Jake Sheridan. Now, Jake Sheridan came in early on in this campaign, in this season. I've managed to get him to sign on as a non-contract player, which works absolutely fantastic for me, because it means we're not going to be paying him unless we're playing him, and really for next season he's going to be more of a backup. And following that, the only other players to really discuss are Jean-Michel Fontaine, who has declined as a footballer over the last season and really hasn't contributed as much as I wanted him to. He'll be leaving at the end of his contract. Similarly with Andy Brown and James Armson, who haven't played as much. Connor Franklin, I'm yet to make my mind up with. He's a leading player for the Vanarama North, but he won't be any more than a backup once we move up into the Vanarama National. Just having a look at the team then, we've got a lot of players on loan throughout the spine of our team. So I'll be looking to supplement our team, possibly through loans, possibly through free transfers. The other areas we need to focus on are defensive unit. Ben Glasgow is a good player for Vanarama national teams, but if he gets injured, and like he did earlier on in the season, we had to move out Theo Street to play at the right back. I don't think that's going to cut it in the level above us. So we're going to try and get possibly a utility man who can play at right back, play at full backs in different positions. But Ben Glasgow will be staying. He's going to be our starting right back next season. So that leaves us really with the goalkeeping problem that I've already explained. We need to find a good goalkeeper next year. So the problematic areas I foresee are going to be centre backs. I think we need a couple of good quality centre backs. Possibly our youngsters can start coming through and supplement that. And maybe we need another loanee to come in for the whole season as well, left back. I think Connor Franklin, he was a good player and he played better than I expected him to. I've got a few concerns about him in the Vanarama National, and actually that left back was a position I tried to look at in the summer transfers that started this campaign. So I think we're going to have a busy off season again. There's a lot of players who are going to leave, and I think just like last season, we're going to have to bring in a lot of players as well to really make our team competitive this year. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this episode insightful and the statistics and some of the comments about the players quite interesting. And I'll see you in the next episode for more Rise of the Moors. Until then, cheers.